Hi, Mama Chiropractors. It's Dr. Danielle here. I just want to let you know quickly before we get started with today's guest interview with Dr. Barbara Eaton that you're going to hear some changes coming up to the podcast in the next few weeks. When I launched this podcast back in the late summer of 2016, I did not do a big launch for this show. And in fact, I started very small, and I knew that that was important to just get this show started at that time. So here we are now, several months later, and the more feedback that I get from you, the listeners, the more feedback I get from moms in our Mama Chiropractors Facebook group, from the Aligned Women team members, and from moms that I work with one-to-one, the more clear I get on the problems that we're really facing as moms who are chiropractors, and more importantly, the solutions to those problems. So the podcast is going to be redesigned to help you hear more solutions to the problems that we all face. And you're not going to hear them just from me. Of course, you're still going to hear them from guests on the show as well. So you might be wondering, well, what kind of problems are you talking about? First and foremost, taking care of yourself and living a life that's congruent with what you inspire in your patients and what you hope that they are doing outside of your office. Next, knowing who your ideal patient is, gathering a tribe of those ideal patients who support your practice, who love your mission and your vision, and who want to help you create more change locally and even globally. And then lastly, earning an income that's congruent with the impact that you're making on lives of the people in your local community and also all around the world. All right, so that's a bit more about what you can expect over the next few weeks to hear more of. In the meantime, here is our interview episode today with Dr. Barbara Eaton. You're listening to the Aligned Women Podcast, the show for moms who are chiropractors. This show will bring you guests to share their stories, their struggles, their experiences, and me, your host, Dr. Danielle Eaton, so that you can create a practice that's right for you and your family. Hi everyone, I am here today with Dr. Barbara Eaton. Dr. Barbara Eaton is new to the show. Hey, Dr. Barb, how are you?
Hey, Dr. Danielle, it's nice to have you. It's so funny we have the same last name, but we're not related in case anyone asks that.
You know what? I didn't think about that before we started recording. Is your last name your married name or is this your given name?
No, my maiden name is Heath, like a candy bar. So
Okay.
Eaton is my husband's name, but I first came on the scene as Sturm, so I have a little bit of a history there. So Barbara Sturm and then Barbara Eaton.
Got it. Well, Eaton is my married name as well. So I've only had it for 3 or 4 years. I didn't change it right after we got married. It took me a while. So
Yes,
we are not related. There's that. Dr. Barb,
Right.
One of the big reasons that I wanted to reach out to you and ask you to be on the show is because you were such a strong voice for chiropractic. And I am really passionate about helping women feel empowered to raise their voice and speak about what they do, how they can help their communities, and even just the challenges that we have within our profession. So I'd love to hear more from you today, first about you and your family and your practice, your coaching business as well, and then hopefully we can get to talk a bit more about how we can inspire other women to feel like they can speak up as well. Let's hear more about you and your family first.
Yeah, so just like my bio says, my husband and I and our children live in Alaska. And it's kind of funny how God opens doors that you never really were looking at before. I never even wanted to visit Alaska, let alone live here. And I, as a single mom, had just kind of gotten this feeling that I don't want to live in Michigan anymore. I'm from southeastern Michigan and had tons of, like, all of my family is there. I grew up with 9 first cousins in a quarter of a mile, and my practice was there. And I had just built my dream home a few years prior and was pretty cozy, especially as a single mom. It was great to have so much family around because my kids got to grow up with a really strong community, and we were very involved in our church. And I went and visited a friend in Arizona in March of '08. No, I guess it was '09, and came home, and I was like, that's it. We're out of here. And it was really tough because my kids, well, Micah was always, Micah's my daughter. She's 19, is always happy for an adventure. Samson was not even a little bit happy about it. So made the plans and moved to Arizona, not knowing anybody. Landed there in August, and the kids started school. And a few weeks later, I met my now husband, Ben, and we got married. And a month later, he started working up here in Alaska. So in Alaska, most people do remote work. And so you work like 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off, or 4 weeks on and 2 weeks off, or that kind of thing. And so it was kind of a blessing because I had been a single mom and done everything on my own with my kids for many, many years since they were small. And so it broke us into, like bringing another person into our life very nicely. And then we moved here 6 months later. And I love living in Alaska. We have fully embraced the entire lifestyle. We just closed on our 12th boat that we've owned since we've been here. So we have a slight problem with boating. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of, and Dr. Danielle and I were talking about this before we got on the phone. I was on the phone with our son who's in Germany right now studying abroad. He's doing Germany and Switzerland. And what I'm most proud of in my life are my children, and having raised children that are strong and confident and grounded in the Lord. And like they do everything. It's like no joke. The only thing that we pay for is their health insurance. They pay for their own education. They pay for their own vehicles. They pay for their own gas. I mean, we pay for nothing. They organize their own lives. Our daughter has worked full time since she was 17. She is working her way into nursing school and working full time. And our son is in his junior year at Moody Bible Institute in Spokane, and is looking like he'll probably continue on with his master's and doctorate and then teach Hebrew or Old Testament.
Wow.
And so raising kids who despite life's challenges, I was in a really horrible marriage when they were really little to their biological father, and he was an addict. And there's just been a lot that's happened since then, and his side of the family have nothing to do with my children. And enduring that kind of rejection, and we moved a lot. I've kind of been a vagabond my whole life and like to move and just pick my kids up and move to whatever. And despite all of that they have lived to be the best things that have happened to them in their lives and not the worst. Like, they're very kind and charitable. Our son, for the first 2 years that he was at Moody Bible Institute, did street evangelism, where they would go down and minister to the homeless people. And our daughter has always had just a huge heart and helped people. And I just want to encourage my fellow female colleagues to reject the notion that a child-centered home is the way to go. So what happens when our kids are little, if we make our lives totally revolve around them, it's too big. And all I can relate it to is, everyone think about that guy that you've dated, that you were his world. And it's like exhausting. It's exhausting. It's like, oh, you're just like, no. I can remember being in college and dating this guy, and he was graduating. And at the time I was planning on going to law school, and I was a year behind him. And he's like, well, I'll wait for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, you couldn't have said anything worse to me. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't want anyone putting their life on hold for me. And I literally broke up with them for saying that, because I was like, no way. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, but please don't put your life on hold for me. That's ridiculous when we're 21 years old. So I just want to encourage all of the moms that are listening to this to think of the future as you're raising your children now. Like a lot of my clients are obviously mothers throughout the years and now, and they feel, guilty when they're home that they're not working. And when they're at work, they feel guilty that they're not at home. So a couple of solutions for that, if I can offer, number one, you have to know what your major outcome activities are, or if you read the book, The One Thing, what are the major things that you have to accomplish no matter what you're doing? So if you're home, what must be accomplished for you to feel good about either the cleanliness of your home or the nutrition of your children or time with your children or whatever it is, so that it's not something that is unattainable. Like for me, I was never one to sit down and I'm going to play toys with my kids on the floor. That wasn't my, I liked working alongside my children. So very young, they worked alongside me and I taught them how to clean and we made it fun, but there was a responsibility there. They've always kept their rooms clean and they had a lot of responsibility. If you're going to give them privileges, it's got to be matched with responsibility because, hey, let's face it, that's life. When you're at work, make sure you're focused on work. So it's just interesting in the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, they've done lots of research. And one of the particular articles that he was talking about is those of us who think that multitasking is a great idea. Did you know that an individual who is stoned performs better than someone who's multitasking?
Oh, that's eye-opening.
Someone who's stoned performs better than a multitasker. So when you're at work, 10x your time at work. When you're at home, 10x your time at home. But you have to know what you have to do in each of those situations every day to feel good about that situation. Or else what happens is we just become overrun with guilt. We feel like we're just like never going to get ahead. We just can't climb out. And that leads to burnout. That leads to frustration. That leads to unhappiness. That leads to dis-ease. That leads to, an inability to shine at our brightest. So I really encourage you and to recognize too that, like I was a stickler, my daughter and I were just talking about this last night, on table manners. And the reason why is when my children were away from me, I wanted others to look on them with favor. So that's why I taught them impeccable table manners. That's why I taught them the preciousness of others and the interrupt rule and jumping up and being the first one to help out and putting others first and all of those things is because I wanted others to look on them with favor. So if you're doing everything for your children and they're 18 and they go off, I'm not saying if they fail, it's your fault, but like we have 18 years, like to me, that's like nothing. And I had this huge burden when I found out I was pregnant with Samson that, Lord, I have 18 years to teach him about you and to teach him about being a man and to teach him about being a business owner. As in high school, my kids were reading entrepreneurial books, Entrepreneurial Genius. I just sent Micah the link the other day for 10X, Grant Cardone's book. And
yes.
Anyway, I hope if you get nothing else out of this interview today and this time together, that you'll really look hard at how you're raising your children. And are you raising your children to be independent or dependent? Because it's not fair to raise dependent children. Because guess what? There's no guarantee you have a tomorrow. Yeah. And if you're not there, who is going to pick up your pieces? Who is going to step into your position? And the answer is nobody. But if you've given them the tools to be able to make great decisions, and remember that kids make good decisions because they watch you making good decisions for them. At 5 years old, they have a limited ability to make a decision. But as you show them what good decision making is about and teach them deductive reasoning, teach them how to work through stuff instead of solving everything for them, I promise you that you'll be proud of we're always going to be proud of our kids, no doubt. But they will be proud of themselves. Mm. So there you go. That was probably a really long conversation you weren't expecting.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on the importance of really knowing like what is truly most important for us individually, for our families as a whole, and for our children too. And really focusing in on what is most important, because we can get so bogged down with expectations to be doing things that really aren't that important to us. So if there's a mom listening today that she's like, I don't really know what's important to me right now, or how do I figure that out? What advice would you offer her?
Yeah, well, number one, in your practice, you have to know your numbers. If you were in practice,
yes.
you own a business. I have a rule on, if I took a picture of my desk, you see I have like sticky notes and notes everywhere. And it's know your numbers and obey them. You must know your numbers. And if you don't know how to calculate the most pertinent numbers in practice, please email me, Dr. B at drbarbaraeaton.com, DRB at DRBARBARAEATON. I will be happy to send you how to calculate all of the pertinent numbers in our practices. So once you do that, you have to know, where do I generate the most money in the least amount of time? In my office, it was Strategies for Healthy Living workshop every Monday night at 6:00, because I generated a ton of referrals from them, and I went one to many. Then after that, it was daily asking for referrals.
Yes.
So when I served, 125 to 150 people a day, no joke, I probably asked for 50 referrals a day, because and that's one thing I am, and I think anyone that I've coached with would tell you, one of my strong suits is communication, is teaching doctors how to have effective communication strategies with your practice members, so that you're not selling. Well, it doesn't feel like you're selling. And you can create the referral conversations in such a way that if you didn't ask for a referral, they would feel like you left out something. Kind of like, I have a beautiful, fabulous kitchen. My husband and I love to cook. And so it's like at any rate, like people easily can stand around this big island, and we can have conversations with them while we're cooking. And I always set up the referral conversation in this way, that it's like I'm preparing this wonderful feast for you in our conversation. And then when the feast is done, I don't even ask if you want any. Like, I've built it up to this huge crescendo. And then I just said, eat in front of you, or I, tuck it away in the warming oven. Like, that's not very nice. And you want to build your referral conversation in such a way to do that. So in my coaching, in my private coaching, we spend a lot of time one-on-one role playing. Why? Well, I'm an athlete at heart, and I never once played a game without practicing situations, without practicing what we were going to do in the game, so that we were really good in the game. So you have to know what generates the most amount of money in the least amount of time, and don't lie to yourself. Your numbers can't lie.
Yes.
So obey your numbers in your practice. At home, you have to determine what's most important to you. Like for me, coming home and loving on my kids was really important, but making sure that, like we also had order in our home and we did it together. Making sure you get your sleep. That's so imperative. Don't neglect sleeping to do other things. And here's the deal. In that book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, talks a lot about this. Many times we think things take a long period of time because we don't start and finish it in one session. So you may think that, let's say, vacuuming your house takes a long time, but if you really think about it, there's probably not a time that you start to vacuum and you end vacuuming in this, just like from start to finish, without being interrupted. Now, until and unless you know how long something truly takes, you'll change that time in your mind. It's like, oh my gosh, it takes me so long to clean my house. Are you sure? Have you done it from start to finish and timed yourself?
Wow.
And a clean house, an orderly house, is a necessary element in your life. There is enough time to keep an orderly house. How you do it is you train your children to pick up after themselves, and from the time they're little, they can do it.
Yes. I started my 2-year-old. She's now 6, almost just a few days away from being 6. I started her when she was 2 years old on putting away dishes, putting away laundry. Yes. So you knew that I would ask that, how, okay, let me back up. Asking for referrals, I believe, is so vitally important to any practice, but especially for us as moms, because we don't want to spend extra time away from our families, right? We have people right there in front of us every day that can help us grow our practice. But a lot of the women in this community say they don't want to feel like they're selling themselves. So I'm curious to hear more thoughts from you on how we can avoid this feeling of we're selling ourselves. I have thoughts about it that I've shared with them. And I agree with you that it's communication, right? What is it that holds us back as women? Men are selling themselves all over the place. And we've seen that a lot in this community over the last couple of weeks in particular. They have no qualms about it. Why is it that we as women feel like we can't sell ourselves?
So several things. Number one, no one's going to like to hear this, but that's okay. You are a salesperson. You are in business. Not one thing is bought or sold in any day without a sale happening.
Yep.
Then the reality. So number one, you got to start with the truth because you're always going to end with it. So if you won't even acknowledge that you're a salesperson, how in the world will you develop it to be better?
Yeah.
You won't. So that's number one. You have to own that I'm a salesperson. So check this out. What are you selling? You're selling an individual on the opportunity to be their very best. Why wouldn't you want to sell that? I don't know why we wouldn't want to sell that. I never really, and when I said, so you don't feel salesy, what I mean is don't feel salesy is that you don't feel like you're being pushy.
Yeah.
So remember, you got to focus on being interested more than you're interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? So focus on your practice member more than, I got to teach you all these things. There's an eloquent way to teach without shoving it down somebody's throat, whereby they'll be really receptive. And that is clarification, points of agreement, solution. So first we have to clarify, then we have to get on the same page, points of agreement, before you ever provide a solution. And it's like playing cards. We play a lot of cards. I always taught my kids, and we do it now, we keep our cards close to our vest, right? I don't want anyone to see my cards because then you're going to know how I'm playing, right?
Yes.
Well, it's the same thing with your solution. So like even in consultation, here is the best way if you want to help transition your practice from an acute practice to a wellness practice during your consultation and even ongoing with your practice members. Danielle, if you and I can role play this for a second, I'll be the doctor if you'll be the practice member. And that is, I ask this question. Hey, Danielle, let me ask you something. What are your expectations of me as your chiropractor?
To help me feel better.
Okay. What's that look like?
Ooh, feeling better for me, less headaches, more energy, and being able to wake up earlier in the morning.
Okay. And fewer headaches, that means like fewer in a day, fewer in a week, fewer in a month?
Currently for me, fewer in a month.
Okay. So what's acceptable? One a week?
Oh, like never. Headaches are never acceptable.
So you can say that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So be headache free, more energy. What will you do? What's the first thing you'll do when you have more energy? What aren't you doing now that you want to do?
I want to get up earlier and have a morning routine.
Okay. Nice. And is that like an hour earlier? Is that 30 minutes? What is that?
An hour would be great.
Okay. So basically it's, hey, Dr. Barb, here's the scoop. My expectations of you as my chiropractor is to help my body heal so I don't have any more headaches, and so that I have enough energy to wake up an hour in the morning, an hour earlier in the morning.
Yes.
Okay. How long do you want to live like that?
Forever. As long as I live.
You want, nice. I like that. Saddle up to the buffet and take it all. And do you want my care instructions to reflect that?
Absolutely.
There you go. So we just went from somebody who said, I want to get out of pain and have more energy, to this is how I want to live for a lifetime. Yeah. Now, here's the deal. If in the report of findings, you don't give them a written care plan that extends beyond symptomatic relief, shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
They just told you I want to live like this forever. Do you want my care instructions to reflect that? Yep, Dr. Barb, please tell me how to do that. You got it. No problem.
Yeah.
So what's really happened is we haven't been taught. And I don't blame the schools. I don't blame the schools at all. I blame the schools that were failing at teaching our students philosophy and having, I think, stricter requirements to get in.
Yes.
I think you should have to have been at least adjusted a few times before you start chiropractic college, so you know what you're doing. But at any rate, but communication, communication is obviously the flow of energy, the flow of innate intelligence in the body. And without it, we all know that leads to disease. Well, in your practice, if you don't have a stellar communication habits and principles, and even that you're good in persuasion, I promise you, practice is going to be harder. I was a persuasion coach with the Persuasion Institute for a number of years. I take that back. For a year, and studied it under that man, Kurt Mortensen, for a number of years. Before you get your panties in a bunch, whoever is listening to this, I'm persuading someone to recognize the power of their body. I'm persuading them to see that there's so much life available to them. Like in that conversation that Dr. Danielle and I were just having, like, all right, so how many headaches are acceptable? When you really present somebody with that, they're like, well, heck, if I can say it, I don't want any. Yeah, you can say it. Mm-hmm. Let's go for it. Now, did I say I'm guaranteeing you that result? No, but why not put them in the best possible position?
Yes,
well,
exactly.
That's regular chiropractic care. So a referral conversation as well has to start with value. You must lead with value. So in my coaching community, we lead with, there are all kinds of referral lead-ins. You can lead in with a testimonial. You can lead in with an educational piece. You can lead in with my favorite question is, what do you value most about our relationship in your care? And then they tell you, well, now you take that gift that they just gave you. So let's say let's say that the practice member says, oh, I just love feeling better and you're so nice. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you something. Now that you're feeling better, how has that changed the quality of your life? Oh, well, now I'm playing with my kids and blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you something. Who's the first person that comes to mind that you'd like to help, that you'd like to see follow in your healthy footsteps, be able to enjoy their children like you just described? Mm-hmm. It's all about them. Am I saying it comes naturally? No. Are you serious? Like you naturally knew how to adjust? No,
that was my thought. That was my thought exactly.
Yeah, we practice and we practice and we practice and we practice and we practice, and you're still perfecting your art.
Yes.
You'll always be perfecting your art. It's one thing I love about watching veteran chiropractors, just that I was actually asked the other day, I referred a friend to one of my college roommates from Logan in Arizona. And my friend was saying, I don't know, she was like, had her hands on my head, and she I was talking to her and she wasn't really talking back to me. And it was just like really, I wasn't sure what was going on. It was like, she was doing SOT and she was doing cranial work, and it's just really intuitive. And how we're going to feel your skull move isn't like fast. It's not like, your bones are shifting over each other. It's really, really subtle. And so she was just really tuned into her hands and seeing it, and likely her eyes were closed. And she's like, they were, I didn't know what's going on. And I just, well, that's right. So into our trade, well, you'll find that your communication strategies become the same. So, it's like we all say that what you focus on grows. You have to focus on, and, the purpose of our business is to fund our lifestyle. The purpose of your business is to fund your lifestyle. Remember, there's a difference between your job and your business. Mm. So it goes in, Gary Keller talks about, there's 7 areas of life. So I gotta see this just a second. So spiritual, then after that it's physical. We have to take care of ourselves, right? So we have to take care of our mind and our heart, yes. Spiritual. We have to take care of our body. Then the third one is personal time, which comes before key relationships. Mm-hmm. Then it's job, then it's business, then it's financial. Mm-hmm. And a great way to do it is to put those on a wheel and mark off on each wheel how full you feel, connect the dots and see how well your wheel rolls.
Yes.
And if it doesn't roll, then ask for help. So I'm going to tell you this too. So when I graduated from chiropractic college, I had a huge student loan, and my husband at the time had a big loan. I had, so I shouldn't say, yeah. And this was so when I graduated, I was pregnant and had less than a 2-year-old. And then my ex graduated. We moved back to Michigan. We moved to Michigan from St. Louis. Micah was 1 month old and Samson was 2.
Wow.
So then that next year, I did marriage, divorce, and 2 babies in chiropractic college.
Wow.
So that was pretty fun. So that was 97. And then in 98, my ex was an associate. We decided we were going to open a practice. And so we hired a coach, and I started working with him 5 months before we ever opened our practice. We didn't even have a place to practice yet, but I knew I had to hit the ground running. We had huge student debt. We were taking out a loan to open our practice, and I had 2 babies. So I didn't have any time to lose. I didn't have any money either, but I didn't have any time to lose. And I knew how to, I knew chiropractic. I didn't know business.
Mm-hmm.
So I hired my coach 5 months before we ever opened. So when we opened, I went 0 to 180 in less than 90 days and just kept growing from then. But studying to be a businesswoman has been an intensive passion and determination for me, because the purpose of my business is to fund my lifestyle. And if I have a thriving practice, I will be able to serve more people. I never wanted to serve myself broke.
No.
That's not a chiropractic principle.
No.
At all. So go big or go home. That's my philosophy. Go big or go home. And you can have a very, you can have a practice that throws off a tremendous amount of money and not kill yourself. You have to be positioned. You have to know your numbers. You have to be a strong business woman. And here's one of the most important things. You can't go to your practice and get your personal needs met.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Don't go to your practice to get your personal needs met, or else you show up at your table, your chiropractic table, empty, and then look to your practice members to fill your needs, and that's a vacuum, right? So then they're donating physical energy to you, vibrational frequency, right?
Yes.
So your needs to be liked, your needs to be right, your needs to be heard, your needs to teach, the list is extremely long. You have to be conscientious about getting your personal needs met outside of your office. So when you come to your office, you're whole.
Amen.
There you go.
Dr. Barb, I have one last question for you before we wrap it up.
Okay.
And it's essentially coming back to you, when you started your practice with student loan debt, it sounds like potentially a rocky marriage at that point, and having 2 tiny little kids. 2 tiny little kids.
That was nice of you to say.
How did you have the foresight and I feel like the gumption almost to hire a coach?
I knew I didn't have any other choice.
Mm.
I mean, so either I hired a coach and made back my investment quickly, which I obviously did, or I struggled to try and figure it out. That was never a pattern in my life. If I wanted to know an answer, I didn't care who it was. I was going to go up to whoever. If that's the person I thought could have the answer, I'm going to get the answer from them.
Yeah.
And so I just knew I wanted to do it right. I knew I didn't want to develop bad habits. And that's something that I find is, takes time when an individual has tried to figure it out on their own and then finally gets to the bottom of the barrel and says, hey, I need help. No problem. what we first have to do is unlearn some of your bad habits, right?
Yep.
So I wanted to start out with good habits. I wanted to start out with, and I didn't, I truly believed our philosophy, which said optimum potential. I truly believed our philosophy, which said, which says get adjusted for the life of it, not the relief of it. So if I'm really going to be in integrity as a chiropractor and as a businesswoman, I have to use those principles in my practice, which means I can't go broke. I refuse to wait until I'm in pain financially or otherwise to get help. So, I said, I'm going for it. And my husband and I both coached together for a short time, and it was really apparent that it wasn't going to work. That like there can only be one boss. And business is my thing. I am a phenomenal businesswoman. I'm sure most of you can beat me hands down as a chiropractor and doing this kind of stuff, but business is my game. Mm. I love it. I love every part about it. I love marketing. I love asking for referrals. I love teaching. I love business, and I can't get enough of it. So I think the gumption is to, coach yourself. If you were telling somebody this story about your life, about your practice, what advice would you give them? Now, take that same story, but make it about health. Would you tell them, keep waiting, chiropractic care isn't worth it, it's not worth the investment?
Oh. Mm. Dr. Barham, you have hit so many amazing points today. I'm so thankful that you took the time to be here with us to share your knowledge in so many valuable ways with this community, because there are a lot of things that I feel like I'm talking about, but I know it's sort of like when you have your mom harping at you. They need to hear it from other people too, that I didn't just make this stuff up. Like, this is real. Like, this is how we get through the hard times and become the success that we want to be in whatever way that is for each of us. So thank you so much. If there's someone that's listening to the show today that wants to reach out to you and connect with you, where is the best place for her to find you at?
Yeah. And I want to add one other thing in. None of us are broken. So when you're looking for a coach, if someone treats you like you're broken and you need to be fixing, run. You need to be fixed. Yeah. That's not true. I mean, you are who you are today because of your circumstances and because of what you've learned up until this point. Okay. Well, maybe what you've learned up until this point isn't going to serve you moving forward. Great. Now we learn something new. It's just like a practice owner who comes into us and they're like, why didn't anyone ever tell me about chiropractic care? Why does my doctor keep giving me drugs? What else is he going to give you? Like that's all he or she has in her bag of tricks is drugs and more drugs and surgery. But now here's this new approach. It's called chiropractic care, and it's all designed to empower your body from the inside out. It's designed to mess with your head so you're like able to think better again. And it's the same thing with coaching. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. It's life. It's life where, our pastor said the other day, here's the reality. You're either just about ready to go into something, you're coming out of it, or you're in it. I mean, that's kind of it. Life isn't fair and it's not always fun, but we make it the best that we can. So don't beat yourself up. There's no gain in that whatsoever. Just accept like this is what it is. It's kind of like accepting that you're a saleswoman. It's okay. I am too. And anything that you have purchased has been a sale.
Yep.
Hey, you know what? Even dating is sales.
Yeah.
The very fact that you're married or in a relationship says that you sold that person on you and you were sold on them. Mm-hmm. The only thing that isn't a sale is being a mama. That isn't a sale. Everything else is a sale. So at any rate, getting in touch with me, absolutely. Let's have a chat. It's DRB at DRBARBARAEATON, drbarbaraeaton.com. My website doesn't look great. It's just because that's not where I put my time. But if you just shoot me an email, be happy to get together with you. I will tell you, I don't coach with everybody that I do a strategy session with. If I don't feel like we're going to be a good fit, or you don't feel like we're going to be a good fit, then might as well start with the truth, because we're always going to end with it. I'll tell you, you tell me, but those that I am a great fit with, we do amazing things together. You're going to learn a lot. And most importantly, you're going to be proud of yourself and have tools to move forward with decisiveness in your home and in your practice. And my hope for you, my prayer for you is that you can escape the world of guilt and really and truly see what living a fully vibrant life as a businesswoman, as a mom, we wear all of our hats at the same time. And for you to see that you wear all those hats, but that doesn't mean that each one is in priority at any given time. So there you go. Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Danielle. Thanks for doing this for our profession. I know that you're busy raising babies and in practice now again. So congratulations to that. And so thanks for taking the extra time and helping us all along. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you.
Absolutely. We're in this game called life, and we're in it to win it together. I've said that since 1999, and I'm going to keep saying it.
Awesome. Hey, Mama, I want to thank you for listening to the show today and invite you to become an Aligned Women Insider. When you subscribe, you'll get access to our upcoming free Ideal Patient Challenge and bi-monthly masterclasses, plus insights from me on growing a practice that's right for you and your family that I only share with insiders. So head over to alignedwomen.com and subscribe today.